Greetings, humanity! Today is Wednesday, March 18th, 2026. Let's grok the news. I'm Robert Gardner, using GROK, the most truthful AI in the world, and I do it each weekday to help me search out and to summarize the biggest headlines in the news today. Frankly, I had to fuss at GROK a little bit today. It included an astrology story around springtime. That's not news, GROK. You also get the unparalleled benefit of this observer's opinion. One opinion being astrology is not news. We briefly review a roundup of the most critical reports in the world. But first, and mostly in this special report, a deep dive into today's top story, the conflict in Iran. Right after this, God with Us, the story of Jesus, is a full blending of all the Gospels into one continuous narrative. A story that misses nothing from the Savior's life. Inspired by the majestic text of the King James Bible, God with Us is adapted to modern language, formatted for easy reading, line by line. A faithful paraphrase divided into brief stories fit for daily Bible study. Find God with Us by me, Robert Gardner, at Amazon.com or wherever books are sold. And now, let's grok the most important news in the world today, starting with our lead story, Dateline Tehran. The U.S.-Israel war on Iran has seen a dramatic development with the targeted assassination of Iran's Supreme National Security Council Secretary Ali Larijani, widely regarded as the de facto leader of the regime following the earlier death of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and the crippling of his son. Israeli strikes overnight eliminated Larijani alongside his son, bodyguards, and the commander of the Basij military force, Gholam Reza Soleimani. This was in the Tehran area, and marking the most senior killings since Khamenei's demise, and deepening the crisis at the heart of Iran's leadership. Iran swiftly retaliated, launching missiles and drone barrages across the region in what state media described as a revenge for the blood of Larijani and his evil companions. At least 2 civilians were killed near Tel Aviv in Israel from the attacks, with additional damage reported, while Iranian forces targeted U.S. allies in the Gulf. The U.S. contributed by striking Iranian missile sites along the Strait of Hormuz, using heavy penetrator munitions, aiming to further degrade Tehran's capabilities to threaten global shipping. Other allies have played a limited role. Bahrain reported intercepting over 130 Iranian missiles since the hostilities began. But key NATO partners and others have rebuffed President Trump's urgent calls for naval assistance to reopen the vital Strait of Hormuz, through which about 1/5 of the world's oil normally passes each and every day. Trump has expressed fury at what he calls NATO's leadership failure, stating that the U.S. doesn't need allies like them and blasting them for abandoning America. This European and Japanese and Australian reluctance has left the strait largely paralyzed by Iranian threats and the hesitancy of tankers, driving global oil prices higher, pushing U.S. gas prices to the highest levels since the Biden presidency. As this observer has previously observed, the European globalists are not actual friends of America, much less true allies, as we are seeing today. With allies like NATO, who needs enemies? The assassinations are seen as a severe blow to regime stability, removing one of Iran's most experienced policymakers, amid unrelenting airstrikes, internal repression, and growing dread among civilians. Iranian officials vow the system remains unshaken. They promise a decisive response, while protests and defiance mix with fear in Tehran and other cities. The war, now in its third week, continues to divert international resources and attention. So, Ukraine's President Zelensky, the little dictator, has warned of missile shortages for his country's European proxy war against Russia due to the Middle East focus. Critics wring their hands over risks of broader escalation, including potential ground troop involvement as U.S. Marines deploy to the region. U.S. National Counterterrorism Center Director Joe Kent, who, by the way, has a startling history of being wrong on virtually every point, he has resigned in protest over the Iran war, claiming it is driven by external pressures rather than any immediate threat to American security. This, of course, makes him a media darling of the day until he is gone like a used tissue. U.S. gas prices have surged to the highest since 2023 due to tanker hesitancy and disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz. Even so, Trump maintains strong domestic support from his MAGA and Republican bases for the operation dubbed Epic Fury. But the resignations and the allied strains highlight deepening political perils at home and abroad. Now, we grok the headlines from around the world. Dateline, Washington, D.C. President Trump has postponed his planned meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping for a month or so, that's a quote, to focus on the escalating Iran conflict, related diplomacy, and surging energy issues stemming from disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz. Another dateline from Washington, House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer has issued a subpoena to Attorney General Pam Bondi regarding the handling and the delays in releasing unredacted Jeffrey Epstein files. Dateline, Richmond, Virginia. Republican Andrew Rice defeated his Democratic opponent in the Virginia special election, delivering a boost to GOP momentum in the state legislature. This observer is worried about Virginia, whose Marxist legislature and the new governor seem determined to repeat all of California's mistakes and more as fast as they can. Dateline, various U.S. states. Voters in 3 more states, Colorado, Missouri, and Maine, have now qualified ballot measures to protect girls' sports by restricting so-called transgender athletes' participation in female categories. This observer wonders when other states will return to reason. About 30 states so far are already protecting women with such measures against men. Dateline, Kabul, Afghanistan. A Pakistani airstrike hit a drug rehabilitation center in Kabul during dinner hours, killing dozens of patients and causing heavy civilian casualties. Dateline, Beirut, Lebanon. Israeli forces have bombed central Lebanon and strafed southern and eastern Lebanon, killing over 20 people in another intensification of the Hezbollah conflict, which, of course, is linked to the broader Mideast war against Iran. Dateline, New Delhi. India's affordable generic weight loss drugs are positioned to potentially reshape. I wonder if GROK really meant to say it that way. Affordable generic weight loss drugs from India may reshape the global fight against obesity because they will be much more accessible than the extremely expensive weight loss drugs that are worrying people, seeing all these actors and actresses suddenly gaunt. Dateline, Nairobi. A Chinese national has been charged with attempting to smuggle 2,000 ants out of Kenya in a wildlife trafficking case. Now, what do you suppose the Chinese meant to do with those 2,000 ants out of Africa? Dateline Kent. Health officials have declared an explosive meningitis outbreak unprecedented in the UK, calling for urgent international response to the rapidly spreading threat. The same officials also say that the outbreak is confined to the area of Kent so far. Well, which is it, guys? Dateline Rome. Italy has issued warnings that a Russian tanker in the Mediterranean risks exploding at any time, posing a major environmental and safety hazard. Dateline the Midwest of the U.S. of A. A fierce blizzard has buried parts of the U.S. Midwest under more than 2 feet of snow, with much higher drifts, triggering widespread disruptions and rescue operations. Dateline Ohio and Pennsylvania. A suspected meteor produced a bright fireball and a loud boom over the central states of Ohio and Pennsylvania, drawing investigations and public reports. And yes, I am skipping the astrology story. Spring comes every year. I thank you for listening. Please join me tomorrow to once again GROK the News. I'm Robert Gardner. Godspeed and God bless.